Cape Town, South Africa. It is here that the story begins, in a large and densely populated area known as the Cape Flats, rolling out to the east of the city centre. In the 1950s, the flats became home to the non-white population of Cape Town, forced to move here by the apartheid regime. To this day, the majority of people in townships like Khayelitsha live in poverty and deprivation. Crime is rife, and gangs are often the only option for young men growing up here. You might think this is an unlikely setting for a story on business transformation, but over the past few years I've found that the most successful turnarounds often stem from the most difficult situations, where the need for change is greatest. So, in May 2017, I traveled to Africa to visit a company that is completely transforming itself using Lean, the Halfway Group, a chain of car dealerships in South Africa and Botswana. The first stop on my trip is Halfway Ottery, right in the heart of the Cape Flats. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. A long line of cars snakes all around the building. It's people who want to drop off their vehicles for servicing before going to work. A line seems to be rather at odds with everything Lean stands for, but at Halfway Ottery things are always done with customer needs in mind.
A lot of customers, they don't work in the area, so they prefer to drop their vehicles off early morning, and then we have to take them to work. So we basically have the shuttle service for them, hence the rush early morning.
With free customer assistance and a clear standard in place for them to follow, the morning rush line is dealt with quickly. Everyone has the role clear in mind. One person, for example, greets the customer, confirms the work required, and walks around the vehicle with them, while another checks spare wheel and tools. Everything that can be checked up front is checked, like light bulbs, so that if a replacement is needed, the customer can be told right away.
Saves downtime for the technician when he has to bring their job in and get authorization, where we could get it in the morning with the client.
Before Lean and the introduction of one-piece flow in the dealership workshop, the process didn't run as smoothly as today. With each service advisor trying to deal with their customer and the physical constraints of the driveway space, a bottleneck of cars would soon congest the customer reception area. The vehicles technicians were ready to bring into their lifts couldn't get through the reception delay.
The guys would try and bring the vehicles in for service, they would battle, they would have to wait quite a while before the vehicles could come in. With what we have now, we've got the one-by-one flow where it's one vehicle into the square, one service advisor, seeing to that customer. When you're done with the vehicle, there is a driver ready there to move the vehicle away. Service advisor in turn takes the customer to his desk. So he's spending time with the customer don't feel rushed. The service advisor don't feel rushed either. Previously we would take anything from 7 to 12 minutes to book in that vehicle because the service advisor had to do everything now. Now it's under 2 minutes we take to book in per vehicle.
Lean improvements at Halfway Ottery have not been limited to customer reception. The workshop has also seen some dramatic changes over the past few years. The focus, here like in the rest of the organization, is on making unpredictable work predictable, and then cutting waste wherever possible in order to provide a better and faster service. And so, different bays are used for different types of repairs and servicing. The most important change is perhaps the introduction of an express bay, known as the Green Bay, where the simplest car repairs and inspections are carried out in 2 stages, each taking maximum 15 minutes, with 1 car at a time flowing through the system.
Each 15 minutes takt time for each. Some vehicles we do it quicker, like a Etios, or we do it in maybe 8 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes. The major services, they do between 15 and 20 minutes on a major service, but not more than that.
When I visited, the Green Bay was servicing 37 cars a day on 1 hoist. Waseem manages the workshop and schedules the flow of vehicles every day. He seems to think that Lean has really turned things around for him and his colleagues.
Before Lean, it was basically working a lot harder and not seeing the results of it. Whereas with Lean, there's more planning, you know what's happening, it's more structured. So I feel there's a lot of benefit in it. All the changes for me, personal growth as well, because you weren't stagnating, you were challenged every day, push the envelope. In terms of the guys as well, on the floor, our technicians, they are more driven in a sense because they feel whatever they need. I explain to them, we are here to assist you. So basically whatever you need to make your job convenient, we get it. In the past it wasn't. In the past it was, you just get the work out and that's all you're here to do. Yeah, how do I put it? It's a hell of a plus compared to what it was basically. So we're moving forward in the right direction because we're doing like, say 30 units in the whole workshop and being happy with like 25 hours. Now we're doing in excess sometimes of 60 units and our hours are peaking at 75, 80.
But let's leave the workshop for a moment. We'll see more lean in after sales when we get to Botswana. For now, let's visit another part of Halfway Ottery, the sales department, which has been pioneering the application of lean thinking to selling cars. It is 7:30 in the morning and the sales team has gathered for the daily Asakai meeting, led by Calvin, the sales manager.
Can we invoice?
Yes, please.
And the Asakai meetings we have every day just makes everybody a lot more positive. You know, you go to dealerships, and I've worked in a number of dealerships where you go in the mornings, you have a meeting, and you stand there, and your sales manager says this, and you will do this, and you will get that done right. Go, sell cars. No structure. Here, a morning meeting says, this is where you are, what are we doing about it? When are we getting the documents?
So everything is timed. We do measurements on each processes. Each process we measure what the errors are. We look at what the majority of the errors are. We look at that. We do a focus session on that, a Kaizen on the errors, and we try and rectify it. Before we got into the lean journey, it was chaos. It was each man for himself doing his own thing. There was no systems, there was no processes, there was no timing, there was no measurements. But now with everything being measured, everything being timed, the processes being put in place, the processes being monitored, the processes being kaizened.
Once an application is approved by the bank, it becomes good to invoice. The salesperson will phone the customer and explain the deal. Once the customer agrees, a file is created, all necessary documentation is gathered, the option to purchase is completed, and the file is put on the board next to the stock controller for allocation. At this point, the team leader sends an email to all those involved, parts, fittings, finance. The file goes to the finance and insurance department for signing and is finally invoiced.
We're not getting the files back so many times. You know, in the past we used to get the files back all the time. This is not right, that is not right. We need a different proof of address, and you know, the ID in drivers is not clear and things like that, yeah. But ever since lean, we introduced lean here. It's a smoother process. You see, it's not a back and forth. It's like a straight line, yeah.
The flow of the file improves a lot. From the time when it got to the sales, to the team leader, up till when it gets to me, because I'm the last person to see the file before it goes for a contract. And if anything is wrong with that, it comes back to me, and it must go back to the process and starts all over again. But now, since the lean has been introduced, less and less faults are getting with the files.
But improving the process is only one aspect of the lean transformation of the sales department, the other one being the increase in the actual number of cars that are being sold. The problem is, how do you sell cars in the Cape Flats, the area with the lowest average income per household in the Western Cape? The dealership strategy here is based on something they call the Charmaine principle, employing people from the community to sell to the community. Who better than someone from Mitchell's Plain or Kailicha can sell to people from those areas? Not only does this approach make selling easier, it also gives Halfway Ottery great insights into the way people from the Cape Flats think. Understanding the customer and providing value to them is a key part of any lean transformation. Having a clear standard for selling is also the only way that people with no experience in selling vehicles, and often little experience in the formal economy, have been able to develop the skills needed to make a successful career in car sales. Most sales executives at Ottery have come through from entry-level positions like spotters and assistants.
What we do is we work on disposable income. So we know that a person in the Cape Flats does not want to know how much the car costs. He doesn't want to know the car costs 200,000 Rand. As much as we give him that information, we also give him the information, we mark it with the installments. So we tell him that vehicle is going to cost you 3,000 Rand a month.
We're not going to get people flowing in here on a daily basis to buy cars. Nobody does that, specifically not here. So we found a need to go out there and do things.
There's a lot of first-time customers in the Cape Flats, and they didn't have transport to come to us, or they didn't have accessibility to come to us. So what we did, we took the concept mobile showrooms to the people. So we set up mobile showrooms initially in all the malls in the Cape Flats. So our people sold off the malls. People came into the malls, they saw our concept, we handed them pamphlets and flyers, and they bought from us at the malls. So what we did then, because the concept worked, we went one step further and we opened up branches at those various malls. So that's where we are at the moment. So we've got 3 other branches in the Cape Flats. It's everyone's aspiration to own a car, and people have never owned a car previously. What we do best is we educate the customer, our salespeople educate the customer on finance. If we can get you, we use the concept, if we can get you the finance, will you buy the car?
Thanks to Lean, when they do buy cars, customers tend to get them more speedily than before. Because processes were streamlined, the cost of prepping a vehicle is now lower for the dealer, and that value can be passed on to the customer in the form of a lower price. Preparing and delivering vehicles more quickly in turn impacted the dealer's bottom line, as volumes grew by a staggering 400% in 6 years. Lean also helped halfway with their cash-to-cash flow, shortening the time between when the dealership takes in a car to when the money is back in the bank after the sale. To hear more about this, let's pay the finance department a visit.
When this business was bought in 2011, I think the 1st of February, I didn't have any cash. People bought the business, they paid the seller, and the condition was that every month we're going to pay the seller X amount. So technically the owner is not coming out of his pocket, as what the business is doing, and it's going to come out of the account. So it's not giving me the opportunity to grow, because as soon as I've made money, before the month is done, it's gone and I still got expenses to pay.
The growth of the business and the opening of branches around the Cape Flats meant that more and more cash ended up sitting in stock. This made it critical for Halfway Ottery to find a way to improve their processes as much as possible, to shorten the time between a car being bought by the dealer and it being paid out after it's sold. The cash-to-cash model is applied to both new and used vehicles, even though for new cars things are more straightforward to begin with, as there is no reconditioning work required besides fitting new accessories. Things get much more interesting with used vehicles, as Riyadh tells me.
We look at from when we've purchased the vehicle to when the vehicle arrives, so basically the in-transit period, which is this graph over here. So we need to see if we can better that, obviously, because why is the vehicle taking long to arrive? Then we measure from once it comes to the stockyard to when it goes from the stockyard to the recon center, right? So we measure that period there as well. So you can see, if you look at the graph, there's some gremlins, like with any business you're going to get. So obviously we need to sort out and filter out why that problems are there, right? And then we measure obviously from once the vehicle is reconned to when it comes to the floor, right? And from when it's on the floor to when it's sold. And there's many other, I haven't put them all on the wall because there's so many different segments that we're measuring, even from date on the floor to date invoice, from date invoice to date delivered, from date delivered to date paid out. So there's more graphs to come onto that.
None of this could have happened without the involvement of the production center, where cars are prepared for sale.
What we're doing here is we're taking care of all the new cars deliveries, like all the fitments on them, government PDIs, and obviously the recon for used cars. So the used cars is actually the bigger part of the job, because it's a whole process that it has to go through before it comes to the end product.
The work of the center is based on the two fundamental lean principles of flow and pull. What this means is that each step in the process is clearly defined, a roadworthy test, tires fitting, washing, and follows the previous step in a straight line without interruption. The work has been segmented and broken down depending on the type and amount of labor going into it, and based on that, a car will follow a certain route and visit certain bays. Critically, the center works one vehicle at a time, pulling from the stockyard only once the previous vehicle is complete. The guys in the reconditioning team know that they have 510 minutes available in a day and 6 cars as a target. That means 85 minutes to complete one vehicle. The fitment side has 12 slots for new cars and 4 slots for used cars for delivery preparation and works to a 30-minute takt time. Before the introduction of lean, they worked in batches, which meant that at the first problem a bottleneck would form and delays would soon follow. Ashraf tells me that the center has been applying lean for 5 years. He believes in it now, but at first he was a bit skeptical.
At first I was very negative about it, but I must say when I actually did some research and went through that steps, I found it very interesting. Still today, I'm actually looking for lean to fail on anything I do. I put lean to the test and it never failed me yet. The first time we implemented lean, the first thing we noticed is the calmness in the workplace. It highlighted the gaps in the waste in the system. Before lean it was chaos. It was phone a friend. Like we say in Africa, if Afrikaans maak 'n plan, you don't know that it's make a plan.
It is by involving and empowering people and unleashing their potential that Halfway Ottery and its production center have reached these extraordinary levels of performance. I caught up with the dealer's principal, James Wood, who tells me just how important people are to the success of the business.
Through my journey, I found anybody can do anything. Give the chance and show them the way. I think I'm on a roller coaster ride. I believe I've got so much that I can still achieve and do for the community and for the people working for me. When I see where some of these people, where they've come from and where they are now, gives me a little, boost to see what I've achieved with them. I mean, I've got some of my staff members that, when they were younger, were in the gangs, and they explained that if it wasn't for their wives that they got married and pulled them out, because as youngsters you've got to join the gang. And what's happened working here, earning money, a lot of them have taken their kids and put them into better schools. There's a whole transformation happening, and I believe in South Africa, if we give the opportunities down here, these people are going to come through. Eh? You don't have to do, put in rules and regulations that you have. I'm just saying, just give them a chance, it'll come.
Halfway Ottery is not the only place in which I've found great ingenuity and inspirational people. It is time for me to fly to Johannesburg to visit another much larger production center in the suburb of Centurion. Kidwell and Fidelis work in the rubberizing bays at the Halfway Production Center. For those of you who might not be familiar with the process, rubberizing means to spray a protective rubber coating onto the cargo area of a pickup truck. The rubberizing work takes place over 3 bays. First, masking tape and plastic covers are used to isolate the parts of the vehicle that need spraying. Then the actual rubberizing takes place in the second stage. Finally, the work is checked and the vehicle cleaned and sent to the car park. Lean has brought a lot of improvement to the work, many of which have been suggested and implemented by Kidwell and Fidelis themselves. It's better ways to organize tools, standardize processes, and improve safety on the job. Fidelis tells me how before Lean he had to climb into the chemical storage using wooden planks, whereas now a ladder has been installed, a much safer way of working.
It's making my job to be easy. Before it was very, very poor because I was using the planks to climb there. It's dangerous because if the plank is fall down, I'm gonna break my leg.
Work ergonomics have also been improved.
The guy was holding for me the pipe if I'm doing rubberizing. Now they put a stand for holding the pipes.
So now there's a spring balance. It's better now. Yeah. If Fidelis is spraying, me Kidwell, I'm doing other job. I'm masking, skidding. You see, the job is faster than last time. We changed a lot of things. like standard working conditions. So I can see myself improving.
But how did these changes come about? The production center opened in February 2016 when the centers of two halfway dealerships in the Johannesburg area, Fourways and Honeydew, were amalgamated. The center receives cars from Toyota South Africa, performs pre-delivery inspections, and fits all the accessories requested by the customer before delivering the vehicles. When the two centers merged, people didn't know each other and there were less than optimal processes in place.
We were firefighting. We were, it's a general workshop. We park the car, we do it, we reverse it out. There's no flow, there's no guys in there. We were too busy to actually change anything. I was running around, I had no admin staff, so we were basically doing everything. We were falling around trying to survive.
Initially on site, we only used to do pre-delivery inspections, and we had one lane with that. We then added all the fitments onto it, and it was all kind of trial and error, and we'd move the fitments around and some of it failed dismally, and we did a few more experiments that then worked a little bit better. We've moved all of our processes around to try and see which was actually the best way to flow through our system. We're now on value stream 6.1, and we seem to be a lot more stable now. Initially it was a nightmare. We were fighting fires, running around, expediting cars, moving cars, jumping cars, reversing cars. But now we work like a hose pipe. You put one marble in, and 330 minutes later you get another marble out. So we seem to have achieved a lot of stability now.
Halfway has 3 lanes at its disposal, which have been set up and rearranged to accommodate one-piece flow. There are 10 different bays: pre-delivery inspection, radio, 2 bays for safety foam, nudge bar, tow bar, 3 bays for rubberizing, and style bar. Each bay has a 30-minute slot to complete its work, with 17 slots in a day. Assuming a vehicle has to visit all bays, it will be ready in 5.5 hours. Prior to Lean being introduced, a sales manager would have to wait up to 5 days for a car to be delivered, even when it only needed some of the possible fitments. Putting things in a flow has led to an impressive time compression. There are a few important rules in the way the flow is organized. Work on a vehicle only starts when the car and all necessary parts are present and when there is a slot available. Vehicles are never reversed. Instead, they go from one bay to another, depending on the work they need, driving in loops around the workshop. Once completed, the vehicle awaits delivery in the car park.
The flow has made the biggest impact, but the people involvement and now being able to move, the multi-skilling, that's a game changer completely. So a lot of them came from not so nice backgrounds. It took us about 3 to 6 months to actually get them to trust us. Trust was, I think, the number one thing that we got right. How we actually had to change how we behave as managers to problems. We couldn't just jump and shout and scream and shout like everyone else used to. We had to treat them with more respect and actually spend the time with them. Most people, they were fitters, that's all they did. You paid them at the end of the month and that's all that matters. We spent time in the bay with them, helping them, trying to understand. Morné obviously spent a lot more time with them. But I think just our involvement and being together and even struggling through some of the things together, we built the trust. And from then, we were able to do a lot more experiments with them and make a few suggestions that would maybe lead them down the right path.
We all have our skills, all have knowledge, and we have a tendency to try and force it on other people, saying, well, I know this already, so why can't you just see it? It takes a lot of patience, and one of the big things is to be able to see the problems in yourself before you can say, if someone didn't learn, what did I do wrong, and what can I change in the way I taught this person so that he can actually learn this, rather than saying, well, this is a bad learner.
When they tried to impose a new working system on the guys, it didn't stick. That's when Morné incorporated the Kaizen tasks into the daily management review.
We were too busy, I couldn't do the improvements, and we had to do something about it. We realized quickly that, when you go back after 3 weeks, they say, well, we didn't have this. Well, you could have had it quickly. If you just told me about it, you could have had it quickly. So it was an experiment of going through the motions. The Kaizen task was something we said we're going to put a Kaizen task up. We have some milestones, which means we can encourage guys to try and do it within a certain period of time. Because we're there every day. If you had a problem, we can help you out on the fly. I can use my experience to help you with the problems you have to improve your work, rather than waiting 3 weeks and then having nothing to happen. So the Kaizen tasks, the daily Kaizen tasks, are definitely something to say, let's do it daily. Let's review it daily. Let's talk about it daily. And if you've got anything that you've got an issue with, we are there.
And even I think that interaction every day with them, I think it makes a big difference to them. Where else do you have a manager and people listening to you and saying, what are you struggling with? What can I help you with? You don't find that anywhere. And in South Africa, it's just, you don't have that.
When they start with this thing, I thought it won't work because it was like a lot of changes. Like we don't know what are we doing. But when we trying, after some 3rd month, 4th month, then we start seeing some changes. Because we never have no more stresses. We know the car came, you check before it even reach you, and then you prepare everything you have. So when the car comes, you just jump and then you do it.
Our journey isn't over yet. Next stop, Botswana, where I will visit halfway Ngami in the town of Maun, which is known as the tourism capital of the country. It is the gateway to the Okavango Delta, a large area that floods every year for a few months after heavy rainfalls on the highlands of Angola. At halfway Ngami, I soon find that the core of the story is the application of lean in after sales. The dealer has a large workshop with 10 bays, servicing and repairing private cars, government vehicles, as well as cars coming back from excursions in the Delta. Ngami is different from any other dealer. Because of its location next to the Delta, a particularly remote and inaccessible area with bad roads and lots of water and dust, repairs here represent 75% of the work. The problem is that while services are predictable, repairs are not. A car that shows up for a regular check and has a certain number of kilometers will need a certain type of service, whereas, say, a vehicle with a squeaky noise coming from the suspensions is a much harder piece of work, because the cause of that problem must be investigated. Understanding the difference between predictable and unpredictable work is really how the lean journey started at Ngami. Tackling the most problematic jobs, the unpredictable ones, which at Ngami are labeled orange, has led to the creation of a pre-diagnosis bay. Michael, the workshop manager, tells me how it works.
Because of the area that we're working, these air vehicles are working in the Delta. Most of them, the road conditions are not good. We have water issues, whereby these vehicles are driven through water now and then. So every vehicle that comes here doesn't just come as a simple service. It has a service and there is a concern. So based on this ratio, we a little bit struggled with just a normal system that other dealers use. And the complication we had is that the vehicle goes onto the lift with the job card written, do the service, and maybe check abnormal noise. The vehicle goes onto the lift, technician do the service, and he finds the extra work. But that extra work cannot be carried out unless customer authorized. So this vehicle will be now on the hoist, and the job has stopped. The communication has to be made to the customer, and it will stay there for an hour, 2 or 3 hours, and that was compromising the flow. So the idea of pre-diagnosis, having all the necessary things need to be done on the vehicle being identified beforehand. Then the authorization acquired, the vehicle goes onto the lift once, whereby the service will be done and the repair that has been authorized will also be done. And that way we manage to get the flow.
The lean is making our life easier, especially in our environment here. It makes our lives easier because we don't have to put the vehicle in and out of the ramp. We don't touch the vehicle twice. We just work on the vehicle once. After being pre-diagnosed, we just work straight away once. Yeah. Every morning I will receive the bookings The vehicles which are booked in, they will be arriving, and then we pack them at the Orange Bay. And then at the Orange Bay, that's where we do our pre-diagnosis. After the pre-diagnosis, they will be packed at the bay while I will be waiting for the quotations to be done. After the quotations are done, that's when I get the job card with the go-ahead. If you have been given go-ahead, I take the job card to pass counter to charge the parts, if the parts are there. If you are not given go-ahead, I allocate the vehicle to the next available technician who can do that vehicle. If maybe you are not given go-ahead and the vehicle is in a state whereby it cannot go, I pack it at the back and then I invite the customer in so that he can come and have a look at the vehicle and advise him.
The focus on Ngami has been on redesigning the work and streamlining it. While the pre-diagnosis bay helps the mechanics deal with the orange work, the predictable and quick service jobs are carried out on the two-stage green bay. Ngami is the dealership that first mastered the use of the green bay, the same we saw at Halfway Ottery in Cape Town. To find a way to bring consistency to the delivery times of vehicles coming in for servicing, Ngami uses something called the Veronica chart. I asked the chart's creator to tell me about it.
We come up with the Veronica chart to be able to tell the customer when to expect the vehicle. Yes. So we introduced the Veronica chart. We separated our vehicles with two categories, green and orange. Then green, we will know that it will take about 30 minutes for the vehicle to go out from the green bay to the wash. That will be able to follow it up. When it's delayed, you will know as a service advisor that this vehicle, there's a problem. Why is it? Then you will follow it up and ask why.
I had seen the Green Bay in action in Cape Town, but in Ngami I decided to go one step further and follow a car for the entire process, timing it all. I show up just after sunrise, when customers start to come in to drop off their vehicles. It is less than 2 hours from the moment the customer drops off the vehicle to the moment it is ready for collection. Lean has greatly improved the performance of Ngami. Washing a car previously took 31 minutes on average, now it's 16. Overall, the workshop can process around 50 cars a day, equivalent to 130 hours of work, with each lift being 5 times more productive than it used to be. As Lean came into the picture, the financial impact for the dealership quickly became clear. Between 2013 and 2015, Ngami's average monthly turnover grew by 57%, its average monthly profit by 111%, and freed up cash by 161%. With the addition of only one staff member, moving from a one-stage green bay to a two-stage green bay led to a 280% increase in efficiency. For this well-oiled system to work, flow and standards are fundamental, as is letting people come up with their own solutions to problems. Over time, this has generated many kaizens, or improvements. While inexpensive, these have proved to be extremely effective. The drive-through wet and soap station, for instance, was put together using cheap components bought at a hardware store. There are also plastic gutters used to drain oil filters, and a device made with plumbing supplies that has shortened the time it takes to grease wheel bearings from 30 minutes to a few seconds. These brilliant ideas are testament to the creativity of the people working on Ngami. The workshop is dotted with mailboxes, which I found to be a particularly clever system to share information between offices and departments. There is even a postman, whose job is to collect and deliver files and job cards around halfway Ngami. But how did management achieve this great level of change? I sit down with dealer principal Sharon Visser to find out.
By creating flows. That is really how it started. When we started to create the flows, we realized we had to do redesigning. And the designing couldn't be expensive because we had to do it now. So once we started the designing and we got things into flow, we had to do the training. So we had to think, how are we going to do this training? And that's where the toys came in, because they're much easier and they're just cheap and easy for people to understand whatever education level you're at. So it was really about explaining, and while we were busy doing that, we started to realize, oh yeah, we told them to drive there, but while we're pushing the car around, oh, it actually would have been better to drive there. So we learned together. It was a learning experience where we learned together. But breaking it all down into pieces made it easier to train. And that's also what Lean does. It does break it down into little sections that are making one able to eat the elephant. Change is frightening, and why is change frightening? Because we don't know what's going to happen, and we possibly don't trust that the people motivating the change have our best interests at heart.
I'm amazed to hear that upon introducing Lean at Ngami, Sharon sat down with every single employee to answer any doubts or questions they might have. This in turn created trust, without which change is simply not attainable.
When you have the one-on-one, people are able to express their fears. And if we address the fears, and often, like I've said, they're very tiny fears. And if you address them, you instill a confidence in the process. And when they're confident, then they communicate and they work with you.
Removing fear from the workplace means that every individual has to be able to raise their hands whenever a problem occurs without being afraid of what reaction the manager might have. It's a fundamental cultural shift. In Lean, we like to use the expression pulling the andon cord, a reference to Toyota factories where at the first problem on the production line, a cord is pulled that interrupts the work and sends a signal to managers that their help is needed. It's also a powerful reminder of the fact that in a lean organization, a problem is nothing but an opportunity to improve, and that it's something that should be embraced. Abueng works in customer reception at Halfway Ngami. The andon, he tells me, is a very important part of the process because it lets everybody know that someone is having a problem. And that's a good thing because it means that the team can go and fix it all together right away. When Lean first appeared, Sharon spent a long time explaining to everybody that they had no reason to be afraid of saying that there was a problem. It's clearly paid off. Very much like in Cape Town or Johannesburg, people in Botswana often lead very difficult lives, which makes their achievements all the more impressive.
We have a community that it's traditionally accepting that you have to care for the family. So everybody in this community has maybe 8 family members to look after. And some of them are sick, and some of them are old, and some of them don't have parents because of HIV. So the burden is quite high. So one needs to always remember the obstacles they have to get over just to come to work. We had a girl last year, she started on her probation with us. She had been out of work for quite a substantial amount of time. She came to us and she got through our probation, and then it meant that she could bring her child to live with her because she couldn't afford to have her child living with her. Her child had to go and live with her grandmother in Francistown are 500 kilometres away. So it meant that she could have her family back. Though that's quite important. We've had people that have had to go onto HIV medication, and we've been giving them 3 months off to recover so they can actually keep their jobs. So we help them through that, and we keep them, and they become very loyal staff members.
I have learned a lot during my visits to halfway across South Africa and Botswana, but perhaps the biggest lesson I've taken home with me is the fact that people can achieve anything provided that they have the right support. Sure, the lean tools are great, but the real game changer is a managerial culture that encourages people to raise problems without fear and to find solutions themselves. Without a lean culture and without its wonderful people, I doubt that the Halfway Group would have achieved such amazing results. For this documentary, I wanted to give you an overview of what the Halfway story is all about. For the next several months, Planet Lean will feature a monthly article on Halfway, which will explain more in depth how the turnaround was achieved. Before I say goodbye, however, I want to let the Halfway people tell you a little bit more about what lean means to them. Thank you for watching.
When we start here with inside, I was thinking maybe it's going to be worse where we're coming. But things change. It's, you know, my boss is like my friend now. Anytime I can call her, we can talk.
We've created an environment where if you've made a mistake, we applaud the fact that you come forward with it.
Fear never brought us anything good. It's only being comfortable and trusting that you can actually get things done.
They know that they can come back to us with a deal if it's not working, and then we will see what we can do to try and get the deal through for them. So we're always there, you know, we're always there with them to make life smoother for them.
So it's created that platform where we can interact with the sales staff. We can, when there's a problem, we don't solve it at a management level. We get the people involved in the work in that level, and when people co-create something, they tend to buy into it.
Not all of us has this high education and using words like hypothesis. The first time I used that word or I heard that word, I thought it was a new animal. But now I exactly know what it means, and I try and use all the lean terminology and just make it simple so that the people right at the bottom can also understand. Because you must remember, if you don't understand something, it's not fun anymore.
Because you also want to take pride in what you do, man. You just don't want to do things for the sake of doing it. You want to take pride in what you do, because at the end of the day, we all are not going to be around forever. All of us are replaceable. But at the end of the day, you always want people to remember the good in you.
The people are willing, they're able, and I give them the okay to do it. I mean, and if they don't succeed, I'm still behind them, because if you didn't try, you wouldn't know.
You learn nothing from success, but you learn everything from failure. So being able to have an environment where you could fail and say, let's work, well, we failed, let's try it again. What can we change? What did you learn from the failure? And continue with that. It's been massive change in terms of how we do things. So.
Lean actually gives a person a journey to travel, whether in whatever department or whatever you're doing. And especially if you give people the right to think and to talk and to change and to do things. Otherwise you become a robot. You come to work and sit there and you do that. Yeah, they can think and say, but I don't think that's right. Then change it.